there, AfterBuzzers. Welcome to the Expanse After Show. We're talking episode 9. We have a very super special guest, and we're going to talk about Protomolecule, more Miller, and the Behemoth going in. Stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
What's up, AfterBuzzers? Hey. We're talking episode 9, Intransigence. I was like, how do we say this word? The Expanse. My name is Kari Lane, and I'm joined by my awesome co-host.
Hey guys, Rick Hong here, and to the left is Cherry.
Hey!
And our very super special guest, we get none other than James Holden, Steven Strait.
Yay!
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us. So, first of all, congratulations on the renewal. Woo!
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
How did that feel?
It was one, such a relief, and just incredibly exciting. It was such a crazy couple of weeks with what was going to happen with the show, and in truth, we have the greatest fans in the world. And they saved us, and I am unfathomably grateful to them. We have such a passionate group of people on this show, and we so desperately wanted to finish telling this story, and they've allowed us to do that. So it was just an incredible moment about a week and a half ago when it was announced, and we're all just all over the moon.
Nice.
I was trying to figure out, did you guys all band together and then tell Amazon and say, hey, until the end of the run of the show, we need free Amazon Prime membership?
Yeah, I wish. Yeah. Well, we'll see if Mr. Bezos is that generous. But we'll take just having the show on his platform.
Yes. And then we do have a live YouTube chat for you watching on YouTube, and feel free to write in any questions. We'll pass those on. And if you're watching it later, no problem. Please comment down below. Also, comment down below after the video's been uploaded, because we have a very special sign poster by Steven Strait himself. Love it. What is this from? You got some long curly hair going on this one.
A beard or goatee?
That was a photo shoot from a long time ago. It was
Very cool.
I was probably in my early 20s then, but
Nice.
that was the picture they gave me to sign, so I signed it.
No, it's classic. It's awesome.
Nice. Yeah.
I love it.
It's
He's
vintage
fake.
vibe, it's throwback. Not to say you're old or anything.
Yeah.
So this season's been a great journey for so many of the characters, in particular in this episode and the last. Now that Holden is seeing Miller, you've had to do some crazy shifts for your character of essentially, maybe you are crazy. How has that been as an actor to perform?
Right. It was something I was really looking forward to the last couple of seasons. I was a fan of the books before we started the show, and the introduction of Proto Miller, or the apparition that is Miller, or whatever he is, we're not entirely sure yet at this point. That interaction in the books I found really fascinating, and we've spent so many years really reinforcing the realism of telling this story and having all these beats be earned. And I really have to hand it to the writers and the authors, because it's a very bold move creatively to go from something so grounded to something very fantastical. Mm-hmm. And as an actor and the creative team, when we were approaching the last episode, the challenge was, how do we root this in realism? How would Holden react in real time to seeing these hallucinations, and how frustrating that would be, and how helpless he would feel? And for me, it was the most challenging episode of the season, and also the most fun, because you see him go through these different shades of just disbelief and concern, and he thinks he's going nuts, or he thinks he's sick. And for a guy who has become so skeptical this season, who has really fought against the feeling of being the savior of anybody or chosen by anything, he's spent this whole year focusing on goals that are tangible, getting Prax's daughter back, and arresting Jules Pierre Mao. not overarching goals of saving the system or making sure the protomolecule is stamped out or what have you. And the great irony of him finally kind of coming into his own as the captain of this ship, and having those earned beats get him to this place just as the rug is pulled out from under him. And playing with that was really fulfilling. I had a really fun time, and obviously to have Tom back, I always love working with him. He's such an incredible actor and a generous man, and we just had a great time with it.
So do you guys like haze Tom Jane when he comes back to set and say, "Hey man, you've been gone for a couple of seasons, so we're the alpha dogs on this ship."
We're just happy to have him back, and I love so much what he did with the character. It was something that we discussed quite a bit together, and with Narain and Mark Fergus and the writers of the episodes to have the Miller apparition progress, go from this kind of staticky, he's not entirely sure where he is either. And, to see him slowly kind of come into something more solid, and to have, to begin to have more of a real relationship with Holden. Pacing that out was really important, and also pacing Holden's emotional beats out was very important in terms of selling this kind of enormous shift in the tone of the story. It becomes this kind of phenomena that is totally unprecedented, and none of the rules apply anymore. So, making sure we were all on the same page and executing that properly was a big key to making Holden's arc and Miller's arc through the rest of the year really work. And we spent a lot of time making sure that foundation was appropriately set so that we could build on that going forward.
It's interesting too, because even though it's being more grounded, there's actually a lot of comedy that comes out with it. Like when you first see Miller even joking about the hat.
Yeah.
And then
yeah. It's funny because the absurdity of the situation. There's a lot of room for having these humorous moments because it's insane. I mean, it's a crazy situation, and Holden has a tendency to be a bit self-serious, and when you have a character like that, there's a really amazing opportunity when absurd situations occur to shake him around. I mean, when he first sees Miller, it's like, it's the first question isn't what the fuck is going on. It's why do you have a hat on inside? Like, I don't understand. I must be nuts because this is so bizarre. So yeah, I mean, we've had a really good time with playing with those comedic beats in between these kind of more heavy moments.
One that stood out in this episode that was very amusing, and I liked how it's just your face, is Alex comes to check on Holden, and it's like, I would have called, just opens the door, any Miller stuff, and just the way you look at him is like, please go away. And it's just so comedic.
Yeah, we kind of thought about it, and Miller wouldn't stop coming to him before they went through the ring. I mean, he was haunting Holden, and the minute that he actually does need him, he's gone, and he's doing his best to do whatever he can to try and like conjure up this image, and there's nothing that he can do. So in our minds as we were playing it, Alex comes down after a couple of hours of Holden just doing everything he possibly can in this room to try and get Miller to appear, screaming and praying and everything that he possibly can, and it just isn't working. And Holden is frustrated, and he's just at the end of his rope. I mean, so many of these insane circumstances have happened so quickly. The minute he needs a hand, he doesn't have one, and he's just doing his best to keep his temper in check and not take it out on people who don't deserve it. Funny moment to have with Alex for sure.
So we have a couple of questions from the chat, shockingly about the coffee machine. Shannon K. Boyle says, did it hurt to break that coffee machine? And then they're just asking that poor coffee machine from Douglas and yeah, the coffee machine. What's going on with that?
Yeah. It was an unfortunate episode with the coffee machine. It's actually a funny story because we only had one of those coffee machines on the day when we did that scene, and they were like, listen, like if we don't have the beginning of this take, we're gonna cut. Like, don't hit the coffee machine if we don't know we have it, because we only have one. And I was like, sure, yeah, no problem. Like, we'll make sure that we're careful with it. And we did that first take, and I just kind of lost myself in the scene, I guess, and I hit it really hard, and it just broke apart. And there's a reaction in the take. It worked really well, actually, where I was like, oh no, not the coffee machine. Like, we only have one of these, and it's in the cut. So he like kind of goes really carefully to kind of see if he can fix it, and he's already kind of remorseful over what he's done, and then it just starts spraying him in the face, and he just loses it. So yeah, I mean, I think it was a little bit of a self-inflicted, a little self-hatred there, kind of breaking the thing that he's most attached to on the ship. It was a really kind of big symbol for where Holden is at as he's trying to, keep his, emotions in check. And, there's still at that point in the season, despite the fact that this bombshell has, that Naomi's dropped on them has kind of shattered this family, they still have to work together. And it's kind of that thing where, you're working with your ex and you're trying to keep it civil, and, it's all very uncomfortable, and it's just really overwhelming to him. So the poor coffee machine takes the brunt of that. And we were joking that we would take an appliance and just break it every episode. But yeah, so that was the reason for the coffee machine being broken.
Bonjour from Paris. Yahoo Hates Liana says, hi, first time watching live in France, definitely worth staying up. I was wondering what you thought still grounds Holden to reality given the complete insanity that is happening around him.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I think, for Holden, Holden was really humbled this year. I think after the end of the second season, he kind of lost himself in this Ahab-ish quest to stamp out the protomolecule. And by that point, he was the only one left, really, who had experienced it so viscerally. Miller is already dead, and he felt somewhat responsible for all of this, even if he wasn't. So the fact that it kind of proliferated throughout the system, and the genie was out of the bottle, and then to have Naomi, who is his lover and crewmate and confidant and kind of co-captain in a lot of ways. Kind of break this incredible betrayal. I think he digs deep and realizes that what's important to him is his family on this ship. And, he's doing what he can to, in the beginning of the season, to help Prax find his daughter, who had become part of the crew by that point. And his motivation is far more simple and more human, and less philosophical than it was before. It's rooted in the people around him. And, the decisions he makes up until this point is really for the benefit of Alex and Amos and Prax, and also, in certain ways, Naomi as well. I think, they part, and it's not acrimonious. He does understand where she's coming from, even if he doesn't agree with it. And, I think it's that. I think he's rooted into these relationships, and that's what really keeps him grounded, amongst this incredible insanity. I mean, when you meet Holden in the first season, I mean, he's this kind of naive, cocky, arrogant guy, and to play this vast arc over 3.5 years, to where he beat by beat becomes the man that the people around him need him to be. through experience and through, frankly, his failures. And I think those failures and that humility have forced him to see what's actually important, and it roots him in those relationships. And I think that's what keeps him on the ground.
A couple things you said in there are very interesting for the title of this episode, Intransigence. So it means refusal to change one's views or to agree about something. There's a lot of that going on in this environment of people agreeing or not agreeing on what to do. So we'll go a little bit into what goes down the episode, and we'll ask you questions or feel free to chime in.
Sure.
The beginning, we have the behemoth, and it's obviously still having some power failure and trouble. And Drummer's line to Naomi, hate me later, or, you can hate me later, you need to work now.
Right.
And, but then she apologizes, like, well, if I killed your crew, I am sorry. Which is kind of almost comedic, because she's like, okay, well, fine. I don't want them dead, but, like, I'm still a human being. When we hop over to the Rosie, they're talking about how there's no stars and how it's a bubble. What did you think when you finally got to see that world inside the ring? Because you said you're a fan of the books. What did you think of how they visually showed it?
I thought it was masterful, and I had an opportunity this year in post to kind of see how they were making it, and it's just stunning. I mean, Bob Monroe and the VFX team are just so wildly talented. To visualize these things as an actor. When you're looking at a green screen on the desk, and you're visualizing this other place that doesn't exist. It's challenging and also really freeing in a certain way, because you can kind of go wherever you want. It's this otherness. I think with Holden in that scene in particular, there's a sense of wonder at what he's seeing, and the fact that there is no stars, and that this incredible event has completely changed the paradigm of what it means even to be human, and what our place is in the universe. I mean, that is that's talked about mostly in Anna's in Dr. Volovodov's storyline, the kind of philosophical ramifications for what these events mean for the way people view themselves, and how humanity views itself, and what place it holds, within the structure of the greater universe. But to see the ring come together, and the Mineo going through it, and it being so visceral and kind of violent when you see what it can actually do. I just think they, Bob and Narain have just hit it out of the park with the way that they have visualized all of this.
Yeah. We get almost comedic and scary moment of Amos confronting, I'm just going to call him Snake Eyes, because that's what he called him before. And he claims he doesn't know. Were we suspicious? Did we think he's just lying, or he really didn't know what he did? The Snake Eyes, of what he did to the ship.
At that point, I thought he was lying.
I'm not sure if he knew the repercussions of everything, but he knew that he was being paid to put something in the ship that he may not have known what all it was going to do. He knew it was going to do something, but not it was going to do all that.
Well, later when he tries to fix it, there's kind of that comedic moment where Amos shows Alex the chip, and he's like, so what can we do? Yeah, that's a Naomi thing.
Yeah, of course the person that's not on the ship is the one that can probably fix it, maybe.
And
we always need
That's
Naomi.
right. I mean, it's funny because we're so helpless in a lot of ways without her there. And,
right?
and I don't think he knew exactly what was going on. He's been played in a lot of ways, and Melba has kind of woven this very intricate web to get back at Holden, and everything goes perfect except the fact that she hadn't taken into account what the ring is and how it functions, and how could she? Nobody knew exactly what it is or what it does. Yeah. She was expecting the Rossi to be blown up, and there's a very subtle and great reaction from Nadine Nicole, who plays Melba, when she realizes that they're not dead. They're walking into that locker room, and you can see it on her face. She's like, "Oh shit, this didn't go exactly according to plan." But Cohen, I think, is just a cog in the wheel, and I think for Amos realizes that they don't know, and it's interesting because it's one of the only times you see Amos actually angry. He's a non-emotional guy, but he's using anger as a tool to get a reaction out of these folks, to see if they actually do know something. And he comes to the conclusion that they don't, and sends them on their way as carrier pigeons, to the Martian fleet.
Actually, speaking of that, so that was something when we first met Melba. I didn't want to say anything, but I was like, so now that you know how she's connected, were you surprised, Rick, were you surprised when we learned Melba is Mao's daughter?
I had no freaking clue. I literally had no clue. Because she turns herself into that weird monster thing or whatever, so I had no clue that she'd be... I thought we were done with that guy. I thought we were done with the Maos in general, and we're going towards the Ring and Miller. So now it's just oh, the Maos are back again. There's another one.
There's a lot, and it was mind blowing. And her daddy issues is going to I was like, oh my god, there's nothing you can do that will ever make your dad respect you, honey.
Yeah, her character, I'm reading the books right now, and when her character is first introduced, you have no idea because, she's vaguely described, but you don't see her. And then when they connect it, you're just like, oh, and that's why she hates Holden. But still, man, that is some deep hatred.
Yeah, it's real animosity. I mean, I really loved that sequence in this episode where we kind of took a chance to breathe a bit and explore those backstories. Yes. Because this family goes from being the magnates of the system to being pariahs almost overnight. And, Holden, this kind of figurehead that she blames for this, who literally makes him kneel before the head of the UN and then, incarcerates him for the rest of his life. He's flipped their lives upside down. And, not just the personal hurt of her father, being in jail forever, and her sister being dead, and but just the stain on the family, that goes from being, the most successful, prolific, powerful family around to being the most hated. It fuels something very visceral in her, and that animosity comes from a very, very deep place, for sure.
Later on, please comment down below. What do you think? Were you surprised when we find out that Melba is part of the Mao family? I think that was a great reveal of just oh, and yeah, as you said, those flashbacks were a really fun way to learn about it more without being this is how she's connected. Right. Also, to see her relationship with Julie was great, too.
Yes. Yeah. And Julie seems to have, she knows what her dad is.
Yeah.
Right.
Then, another strong female going on over to Naomi. She's definitely not happy with everything that's going on, but is happy to learn when Ashford says the Rosie is okay, and the MCRN is going after them to go arrest them. Their conversation about your old crew and if you outgrew them or not was really interesting. Do you guys think she felt like she outgrew her team, or why did she leave?
I think she left because of her loyalty to the Belters, and then when she realized she was going to lose everyone, all of a sudden she realized that was her family as opposed to the abstractness of your nationality or nation or something.
Mm-hmm.
No, she just felt bad for betraying Holden, so she's feeling guilty. So she's like, "Now I got to get out of here. I can't look at it the same way again."
And she was also, I think she was sabotaging the ship the entire time.
Oh,
to keep
really?
her from firing and everything else.
Oh,
She'd never let them shoot her baby.
No, it's more, I think it's just also just being on that ship, she's never going to understand if, at least at that time, if Holden, Alex, and Amos are going to always doubt when there's something else big that happens again. Is she going to make the right decision, or is she going to do something that's self-serving?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that scene that she had with Ashford, and obviously Dominique and David are such incredible actors. When he comes and he essentially is talking to her about the nostalgia of going back, it totally backfires, and then she's like, well, I was with the OPA far before I was ever on the Rossi, and nostalgia in a lot of ways is the reason why she's on the Behemoth. And she makes that decision to go home to her family that she made, because again, it's like it's a subject that we touch on quite a bit in the show. This kind of sense of tribalism and nationalism, and I think the writers, again, we have such incredible writing on this show. They do a very good job of not having these monolithic factions that all agree with each other about everything. There are subgroups of subgroups of subgroups within the OPA or Earth or Mars that sometimes don't agree and sometimes are at odds with each other. And, I think the Rossi crew, if anything, kind of is the symbol and represents how people can move past these constructs that they put on themselves to identify as a Belter or an Earther or a Martian, when in reality, we're dealing with, the ring and whatever the hell that means, and this other entity has come into the fold, and people are still fighting amongst each other, and I think she comes to realize that it's just not. That's just not the way she views how she can, help and move the situation forward.
Also, it seems like even though she's with her people, quote unquote, I would say, on the Behemoth, she doesn't seem like she's comfortable. Like on the Rocinante, it felt like she could really be herself. And
Right.
even though they didn't all get along, everybody on that ship is who they are, and they're not trying to be somebody else. And that's kind of the beauty of their union of, nobody's false on who they are, even though they maybe have some secrets. But, nobody's pretending to be something else.
Well, and she had to switch accents. So, I'm confused. Steven, can you do a Belter accent? Have they asked you that?
No, I cannot do a Belter accent. I thought it was a really cool choice on Dominique's part. It was something that they talked about quite a bit. Just in terms of the, how deep do you go back into the Belter Creole of the environment, and again, an interesting symbol of her having to shift her identity around to fit back in, and again, she becomes really disillusioned with what the OPA is trying to do, and what they're trying to achieve, and it's. When you're looking at it from only one perspective, from one side, like the OPA or Earth or Mars, you're kind of missing the big picture, and I think she sees it, and again, she comes around through this experience on the Behemoth to what is really important to her, and it's the family that she built on the Rossi, and I think for all the people on the Rossi at some point in this season have the same discovery, and really kind of dig deep and reinvest in that.
Absolutely. Now, first of all, quick real thank you to everybody who's watching us on YouTube, but also we have this as an iTunes podcast, so if you like podcasts, please go check that out. And if you have friends who are podcast listeners, let them know about the Expanse after show as the iTunes podcast. Make sure to rate, 1 through 4 don't work, so give it a 5-star. And leave a comment. Let us know what you think about the show, what other topics you want us to cover, and we'd love to hear from you.
Well, we have a question in the chat for everybody, including you, Steven. Curly Toot says, so do you guys think that Naomi and Drummer had a thing, like more than just friends? Because Drummer said,
romantic thing?
Yeah, I couldn't figure out if it's romantic or friendship or something.
I want to think he's too old.
Drummer,
and I love James
Drummer.
Jordan. Yeah. No, Drummer.
Drummer and
Drummer.
Naomi.
Sorry.
That's
Naomi
why
and Drummer.
Ooh.
Did they have a girlfriend?
They had that little question where didn't you come back for me? And I was like, why would she come back for you?
Back to their handball game that they had a few seasons ago, I would say yes. Steven?
I think it's an open question. I'm not really sure. Not sure what happened.
She is known for loving the one you're with, so yeah, okay. You know what? I didn't even think about that. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Curly Toot.
Well, before she says her goodbye, Drummer does have that great motivational speak for the Belters, and this moment belongs to us. Behemoth goes in. They're okay, so that's good. But Naomi, in trying to leave, that was a really kind of like, aw, bye, send off. And she mentions, though, Naomi says, I came back for the wrong reasons. And I think she was being nostalgic the other way, being nostalgic for her life back with OPA, but clearly that was not what she really wanted. And Drummer's so hurt. She's like, you're going to leave without saying goodbye.
She's trying to do the Irish goodbye? Isn't that what they call
Yeah,
it?
you just kind of disappear.
just take off. Be like, see ya.
But Naomi
I'm with the
said-
bossy now.
I'm afraid you wouldn't let me go. And then Drummer, lets her go. And it's like, you don't really know me. But that was really kind of sweet and sad. Bittersweet.
Very bittersweet.
Yeah, I look forward to her being back with the crew. That's the whole time.
Yes.
As soon as I saw that she was gone, my
Yeah.
mind is, okay, what episode is she coming back to the crew? Or how do they get back together? Because that's when we see good stuff happen.
Yeah.
No one
Overall.
can
Yeah.
stay away
It was
from
a beautiful scene. I thought, Kara G she's such a phenomenal actor. You can just see this incredibly stoic person hurting so badly in that scene. It's just brimming from behind this very austere presentation, but heartbreaking, that scene. I think it was just one of my favorites of the episode.
Definitely don't think we're done with Drummer, though. I feel there'll be more of that.
Oh, yeah.
And-
Definitely need
Oh
her.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. She's not going anywhere.
No.
She's going.
We mentioned Anna a little bit earlier. So Anna has a couple different interactions. One with Tilly, who's the woman who's staying on the ship, which is interesting because from the book to this, they changed her to a debutante, and I thought she was married in the book, which is like, oh, fun. So then she's like, this is why I'm staying. But she says she's staying because of extortion. So an executive officer applied for a job at her mom's company. And pretty much just says she's staying because she's thrill-seeking. And asks Anna why she wants to stay. And Anna says it's been the only miracle in her life, which is kind of a very interesting perspective from a woman who's, religious and a pastor and everything. How do we feel about that kind of interaction of Anna trying her darndest? She's like, I'm not leaving. I'm not ready. I am so close to this thing. I'm not going to just bail.
I mean,
Any comments?
no, you've got some this gosh, saying ET is wrong, right? I mean, like you just have this this extra thing that's been created.
Yeah.
Like if you're talking about like a creation of worlds and religion and all sort of stuff. Here's this new thing that shows up. So it's just okay, well, what is this? How does this factor into my world and my beliefs and my teachings? So it's the only way to do it is get close to it and try to understand it.
Yeah.
I think it's a really cool moment for Anna because, everybody on this, all the characters on this show, nobody's painted in black and white, and everybody's flawed in their own way. And, I think for her, her being so close to the ring and her wanting to go in, it shows it's not a selfless motivation. She has this curiosity, she has this wonder, and she wants to know herself what it is. And she has a family at home. She doesn't know if she's coming back. And it pulls her in a way that I think, you start to see her struggle with the motivation of why she's there in this episode. And that continues, why she made this choice. It wasn't for the best interest of her loved ones. It was for her own sense of wanting to know. And I think it paints a really interesting color into this character who has been such a moral force in the story so far. And she continues to be, but she's still a human being, and she does have very human motivations for being out there.
Yeah, it's interesting because Hector, the other gentleman who's like, I'm going to leave, he says, well, I have a family, which it's like, so does she. But I think her curiosity is more the prevalent force for her to move her forward. What was some other? Oh, so then we have the Holden at the very end with Miller, and he pops up, and the trying to have the conversation with Miller always is amusing. Like, no, just talk to me like a normal person. And then this was a fun twist because Miller goes, okay, fine, and then says all these like big elaborate words and phrases, and Holden replies, okay, never mind, just tell me about the regular talk plain speak, please.
Yeah, go back to the metaphors, please.
Yes.
I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Is there
it
any
was
like jokes
funny.
on set when you're doing those kind of almost over dramatic serious moments? Do either of you get the giggles or anything, or is it, you know, full serious?
Oh no, we do. It breaks every once in a while. You know, me and Tom have a really good time with those scenes, and you know, it's so fun as actors to get to play this stuff because it's so unusual and so original in what its concept is.
Yeah.
You know, and Tom is you know, he's so good that, you know, he can, you know, spurt out these incredible series of tongue-tying words, you know, at such a clip and with such ease. You know, it really provides for a really kind of funny moment between the two, and we definitely blew a few takes just laughing because it is so funny and kind of out there, and Holden is so in over his head that you know, this thing that he's been complaining about for 2 episodes of, you know, him not communicating in a simple way, in a clear way, you know, he's like, okay, well, you're right. Like, go back to the metaphors. At least I get that you're talking in metaphors, and I can take a crime scene. All this other stuff, I just have no idea.
How do you feel for Holden of him getting in his spacesuit and jumping in, floating over towards the possible station? We're not exactly sure what it is, but they're calling it the station.
Yeah, it's a big moment for him. You know, it is literally and figuratively a leap of faith. And, you know, he at this point has come to trust this apparition to a certain extent. I mean, it did save their lives going through the ring. And obviously it's only talking to him. You know, no one else can see it. So at this point, you know, they're in uncharted waters, and he has to go with the best option that he has, which is listening to whatever this might be, because there's no guarantee that it is Miller. You know, it could just be the ring using his image, or it could be you know, an infinite amount of other things, because they don't know what's going on. So, but it has saved them, and it has saved his crew, and he doesn't have a better option. So he chooses to jump. You know, and we used the XO badge and him kind of leaving it there as a symbol of just of him kind of leaving this old world behind, and taking this leap into something else, because obviously he has been chosen to be this conduit between whatever made the ring, or the ring itself, and everyone else.
And Naomi's on her way too, for sure. So she's like, "Don't worry, guys, I'm
Hold
coming."
on, I'm coming. Yeah.
Any other final comments on the episode, Rick, Cherry?
Steven, I just wanted to say, you know, you must have just a lot of satisfaction on probably being on one of the most diverse series ever on television. So I mean, that's just got to be like just fun and great. I mean, because you live in New York, and like that's all like a city and also a state that's very diverse too. So.
Yes, indeed. It's something that I and everyone on the show is incredibly proud of, and you know, we take a lot of pride in the way that we built this show, and we have just the most incredible, passionate actors from every kind of background, and we love working together on this thing, and we take a lot of pride in our diversity. So yeah, as a New Yorker and as someone who truly values diversity, and it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing for us to do.
Yeah, that's something I absolutely love about the show as well, and diversity of male and female ratio, and then also of all the different ethnicities and all kinds of representation for sure. Do we have any other comments or questions from the chat?
This one might be a little bit difficult to understand, but I Am Alien says, it's interesting that both Miller and Holden were sort of created artificially, if that makes sense. Because it feels like Holden was being molded into being the leader that they wanted him to be because of outside influences.
Well, technically, Holden was made with multiple parents too, so that's semi-artificial.
Yeah.
True enough. True
Which
enough.
there was a news thing.
I think she's onto something. You know, there's you know, the books themselves are so allegorical, and you know what I think I loved about the books when I first read them was just how, especially in that first book, Leviathan Wakes, just how the arcs of Miller and Holden kind of mirror each other in a funny way. You know, they're kind of reverse arcs, but they do match. And I think there is something to the fact that these two men, you know, find themselves in this insane circumstance and have this incredible tie through this, you know, paradigm shifting moment in humanity. I don't think it was a mistake or chance that the writers chose to do that. So there's definitely something to that for sure.
I'm gonna have to look it up, but I was just about to say there was a news story recently about, I forget what country it was, of them doing exactly that, of doing multiple parents to make a child in turn, like having trying to do multiple DNAs, which I was like, ooh, it's like The Expanse. Steven, is there any current projects you're working on you can let us know about? Any upcoming conventions or events that you're attending?
Nothing that I can confirm right now. I think I'm doing a movie next month in Portland, Oregon that I'm excited about, but it hasn't, you know, all the pieces haven't come together yet. So I always hesitate to say it is or isn't happening because with independent movies, it's all very kind of fragile. But I hope it comes together. It's something I'm really excited about, and you know, getting back to work on The Expanse. You know, I think everybody involved in the show is just itching to get back and to continue the story forward.
Do you know in advance, and they might not have announced it yet, do you know if Expanse is making any appearance at any upcoming conventions like San Diego Comic-Con or New York Comic-Con or anything like that?
I'm sure we are. I'm not. I can't confirm that. I'm not entirely sure, so I don't want to say. But I'm confident that we will be doing something. You know, I'm not sure, but I would think we would be. It would be a question for Narain or for Alcon, but I'm sure we will be at some of these events, if not all of them.
Wonderful.
And your movie, The Covenant, is on Netflix. So a bunch of people rediscovered you. And you look fabulous. So do you think you might want to redo the pool scene again?
Yeah, I've been itching to do another pool scene like that for years. I mean, God, The Expanse. That's a long time ago now. I was 18 years old when I did that movie.
Wow.
We were talking about Sky High too. That one's also a throwback.
Yeah, my goodness. I mean, like over a decade ago, and some. So I'm happy that they're still out there. People are still enjoying them. That's cool to hear.
They're enjoying it very much. I rewatched it. I saw it at the theater when it came out. And then I rewatched it this week, and I was like, I remember the spider scene. I remember that movie. You guys were so handsome in it. I was like, oh my gosh, I've just seen this more than once.
If people have no idea, Covenant is essentially a witch movie, but it's all men. So it's
warlocks.
Like warlocks, exactly.
That's right. It's like the Craft,
but with boys.
With guys.
Yes. And then Expanse is also online, so people are on Netflix and Amazon. So that's ways for people to catch up on those shows and see you more currently. Thank you so much for joining us. Pleasure talking about the show with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a real pleasure.
And if you're ever in Los Angeles, please feel free to stop by.
Will do. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you again, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Indeed. I hope so.
Right.
Thank you,
Bye,
Steven. Bye.
Take care.
And then a reminder for the fans, we have the autograph picture Steven signed. And so to get that, please leave a comment down below your favorite moment during this recap that Steven said something or something we talked about, so we know that you watched this episode. And then we will pick a random winner and let you know, hopefully maybe by like next week's episode or so.
Yeah, let's
by
announce
next
it on
week.
air.
So we will announce it on the air next week who wins. So leave a comment down below, your favorite moment from this recap, something Steven did, said, alluded to, or something. Even just his wonderful laugh or smile.
That's true.
And then we will mail you that autographed picture. Let's do some really quick predictions because we're at the end here. Predictions. There we go.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV.
Things that immediately on top of your head.
Well, I think that we're not going to have a reunion quite fast where Naomi's going to be back with the Rossi, but Holden won't be there.
Okay. Yeah.
So we won't see that reunion
This is
quite as
true.
fast as we would probably like to.
Right. I think so too. It's going to be like two ships in the night. They're going different ways.
I think Melba's still plotting and scheming to kill
I don't think she's gone.
him. She's not gone. She's staying on the ship. And I think that Miss Party Girl Soledad and Reverend Dr. Anna, she was kind of flirting with her for a minute.
Oh yeah, she's like, I'm married, right? Or aren't you married? Yes. I feel we'll see. I want to see more of them. They're pretty funny together, actually.
Yes, they are.
I think that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. Oh yes, real quick.
On the chat, I am Alien says prediction: everyone in that ring is getting teleported somewhere else.
Oh yes, or the ring is teleportation. We don't know what it does, where it takes you, so we will find out hopefully. Again, thank you so much for watching. Huge thank you to Steven for joining us. Thank you for people watching live in the chat. And no worries, please comment down below your thoughts on the episode and for your chance to win the picture. And sign off. Where can people find more all about you guys?
Cherry_LA on Twitter and Instagram.
Hey guys, and I'm Rick Hong. You can find me on all social media at Rick Hong, RCKHUNG, and I'm going to be on Netflix Picks next.
And my name's Kari Lane. You can find me online at Kari D Lane. That's KARIDLANE. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Bye.
Kisses. Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.